You know that moment when you're standing in your own house and you can hear someone screaming your name from upstairs? Not calling for you, not asking for help, screaming at you. That was tonight. My stepmother's voice, echoing through the hallways of what used to be my childhood home. The same hallways where I used to tiptoe, trying not to wake anyone up because God forbid I made a sound after 9 p.m. But tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't tiptoeing. Tonight, I was walking up those stairs with a folder in my hand and the biggest smile on my face. Because after 15 years of being treated like I didn't belong in my own father's house, I finally had the power to change everything. Let me back up. 3 hours ago, I was sitting in my car outside the house I grew up in. The house my father left me when he died. The house where my stepmother and my 2 stepsisters have been living rent-free for the past 2 years. While I, his only biological daughter, have been staying in a studio apartment across town. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it gets worse. Because for the last 24 months, every time I've tried to move back into my own house, they've had an excuse. Oh, we're not ready yet. We need more time to find a place. Your father would have wanted us to stay. But tonight, as I sat in that car, listening to the sound of my stepfamily laughing through the open windows, something inside me just snapped. I looked down at the folder on my passenger seat. Legal documents, eviction notices, bank statements, everything I needed to reclaim what was rightfully mine. And then I smiled, because I remembered something. Something my stepmother said to me just last week when I asked her again about moving back in. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "This is our home now, sweetie. You'll just have to adjust." Our home. Our home. Well, let's see how she feels about that when she's packing her bags at midnight with nowhere to go. I turned off the car engine, grabbed my folder, and walked up to the front door of my own house for the last time as a visitor. Because by tomorrow morning, I'll be sleeping in the master bedroom again. And they'll be sleeping somewhere else. If they're lucky. I need to take you back to understand how we got here. Because this story, it doesn't start with tonight. It starts 23 years ago, when I was 7 years old and my mother died in a car accident. My father, bless his heart, he tried his best. For about 3 years, it was just him and me. We had our routines. Saturday morning pancakes. Sunday afternoon movies. He would braid my hair for school, even though he was terrible at it, and I would help him pick out his ties for work. We were a team. But then, when I was 10, he met her. Linda. My stepmother. And everything changed. Linda came with baggage. 2 daughters from her previous marriage. Sarah, who was my age, and Jessica, who was 2 years older. And from day one, from the very first day Linda moved into our house, I became the outsider. Let me paint you a picture. Christmas morning, 2007, I was 11. I came downstairs, excited to open presents, and found Sarah and Jessica surrounded by piles of wrapped gifts. Beautiful dresses, new laptops, jewelry, the works. And me? I got a clearance sweater from Target and a used book about horses. When I asked my dad about it later, Linda was right there, and she said, "Well, honey, we had to be practical about the budget." The girls needed school clothes. The girls. Not the girls and me. Just the girls. That was the beginning. By the time I was 13, I wasn't eating dinner with the family anymore. Linda said there wasn't enough room at the table. So I ate on a TV tray in the living room, while they laughed and talked in the dining room. When I was 15, they redecorated my bedroom. Without asking me. Pink everything. Frilly curtains. A canopy bed that made me feel like I was living in someone else's house. Because that's exactly what was happening. Sarah got my mother's jewelry box. Jessica got my mother's vintage coat collection. And when I asked about it, Linda said, "Your mother would have wanted her things to be shared, don't you think?" But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was my father. He saw it all happening. The favoritism, the exclusion, the way Linda treated me like I was a burden rather than his daughter. And he did nothing. "Linda's just adjusting," he would say. "Give her time. The girls are going through a lot too," he would tell me. "Try to be understanding." Understanding. I was supposed to be understanding while I watched my stepsisters get everything and I got the leftovers. Let me know in the comments where you are watching this video from. I'd love to know. When I turned 16, things got even worse. I got my first job at a local coffee shop, and Linda decided that since I was now contributing to the household, I should pay rent. $50 a week. Which, for a 16-year-old making minimum wage, was basically all my money. Sarah and Jessica? They got allowances for doing nothing. I remember coming home from work one night, exhausted, and finding Sarah wearing my favorite sweater, the one my mother bought me before she died. And when I asked her to take it off, Linda said, "We're all family here. We should share." But sharing only went one way. When I graduated high school, I had saved up enough money for community college. $2,000. I kept it hidden in an old shoebox under my bed. One day, I came home and the money was gone. Gone. Linda claimed she didn't know anything about it. Sarah and Jessica suddenly had new phones and designer handbags. And my father said, "Money has a way of disappearing in this house. You should have put it in the bank." I should have put it in the bank. Like it was my fault. That was the day I realized I was completely alone. In my own home, with my own family. I was completely and utterly alone. So I left. Moved in with my best friend's family for my senior year. Got a scholarship to a state school 4 hours away. And for the next 6 years, I barely came home. Holidays, maybe. And even then, only for a few hours. I built my own life. Got my degree. Started my career in marketing. Found my own apartment. Made my own friends. I thought I had moved on. Until my father got sick. 2 years ago. I got the call. My father had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors said, maybe 6 months. Maybe less. I drove home that same night. When I walked into the house, after being away for almost 3 years, nothing had changed. Linda was still the queen of the castle. Sarah and Jessica, now in their 20s, were still living at home, rent-free, while I had been paying my own way since I was 18. But my father looked so small, so frail. And when he saw me, he started crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." And I forgave him. Because what else do you do when someone is dying? I took a leave of absence from work. Moved back into my childhood bedroom, which Linda had conveniently turned into a craft room. So I slept on an air mattress on the floor of what used to be my own room. For 6 months, I took care of my father. I drove him to chemo appointments. I held his hand during the bad days. I made him soup when he couldn't keep anything else down. And Linda acted like I was doing the bare minimum. "It's about time you stepped up," she said to me one day. "He's been waiting for you to come home for years." He had been waiting. Like I was the one who had created the distance. The night before my father died, he called me over to his bed. His voice was barely a whisper. "The house," he said. "I'm leaving you the house. It's in my will. Linda knows. She'll need time to figure things out, but the house is yours." I nodded. I told him. I loved him. And 12 hours later, he was gone. At the funeral, Linda played the grieving widow perfectly. Black dress, designer tissues, the whole performance. And everyone felt so sorry for her. What will she do now? People whispered. Where will she go? With the girls. Like I didn't exist. Like I wasn't his actual daughter. After the service, Linda pulled me aside. I know what your father told you, she said. About the house. But you have to understand, this is our home. Sarah and Jessica, they've never lived anywhere else. You have your own life now. Your own apartment. You don't need this place like we do. I was so emotionally exhausted from the funeral, from losing my father, that I just nodded. I told her she could have some time. A few months to figure things out. That was 2 years ago. 2 years. And every time I brought up moving back in, every time I mentioned that it was actually my house now, Linda had an excuse. Sarah's going through a divorce, she would say. She needs stability right now. Jessica just lost her job. This isn't the time to make big changes. Your father would have wanted us to take care of each other. Always. What my father would have wanted. Never what he actually wanted. Which was for me to have the house. 3 weeks ago, I finally hired a lawyer. I was done being patient. Done being understanding. I wanted my house back. The lawyer looked over my father's will and smiled. This is pretty straightforward, he said. The house is yours. Has been since the day he died. They're essentially squatters at this point. Squatters. In my own house. We can file eviction papers, he continued. Give them 30 days to vacate. But there is one thing. Since they've been living there for over 2 years, without a formal rental agreement, they might try to claim tenants' rights. That's when I learned the most beautiful thing. In our state, family members cannot claim tenants' rights on inherited property, especially when they're not paying rent, which meant I could evict them immediately. Last Friday, I had the papers drawn up. 30-day eviction notice for all 3 of them. Linda, Sarah, Jessica. They had until today, November 27th, to be out. I decided to deliver the papers in person at Thanksgiving dinner. I know it sounds cruel, but you have to understand, they had stolen 2 years of my life. 2 years where I could have been living in my own house, sleeping in my own bed, instead of visiting like a stranger. I drove over there. Thursday afternoon. The smell of turkey was coming from the kitchen. I could hear them laughing and talking like they didn't have a care in the world. I knocked on the front door of my own house. Sarah answered. Oh, she said. Hi, we weren't expecting you. I know, I said. Can I come in? She hesitated. Actually hesitated before letting me into my own house. Linda was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, playing house. When she saw me, her face went cold. I thought you were spending Thanksgiving with friends, she said. Change of plans, I replied. And then I smiled. Actually, I brought something. For all of you. I pulled out the folder. 3 sets of eviction papers. The room went silent. Completely silent. Before I tell you what I did next, if you're enjoying the story, please subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Linda read her papers first. I watched her face go from confusion to shock to pure rage. You can't do this, she whispered. Actually, I said, still smiling. I can. And I am. What happened next was beautiful and terrifying. And everything I had been waiting for 23 years. Linda looked up from the papers. Her hands were shaking. Actually shaking. You can't do this, she said again. But this time, her voice cracked. Sarah snatched the papers from her mother's hands. Started reading. Her face went white. Mom, this is real. These are actual legal documents. Jessica was still standing in the doorway, confused. What's happening? What are those papers? Your sister, Linda spat, is trying to kick us out. On Thanksgiving. I'm not your daughter, I said. Calmly. So calmly. I never was. And this isn't kicking you out. This is evicting you. From my house. The word evicting hung in the air. Like a bomb waiting to explode. Your house. Sarah laughed. A bitter, ugly laugh. This has been our home for 15 years. You can't just waltz in here and throw us out. Actually, I pulled out my phone. I can. I had screenshots, bank statements, property tax records, all showing that I had been the legal owner for 2 years, and that they had been living here, rent-free. Did you know, I said, looking directly at Linda, that as the property owner, I'm legally responsible for all the utilities, the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance. Her face was getting paler. Did you know that I've been paying $800 a month for the last 2 years to keep this house running while you 3 have been living here for free? I started walking around the living room. My living room. Touching things. The couch they bought with money they didn't have to spend on rent. The new TV they installed in what used to be my father's den. $21,000, I continued. That's what I've paid in the last 2 years to subsidize your lifestyle. Sarah was reading through the legal documents. Mom, it says here we have 30 days. But today is the 30th day. That's right, I said. Today is the deadline. Jessica finally spoke up. So, what? We're supposed to pack up our entire lives tonight? Oh no, I said. And I smiled again. You were supposed to pack 30 days ago. Tonight, you're just leaving. That's when Linda completely lost it. You selfish little bitch, she screamed. How dare you? Your father would be ashamed of you. The room went silent again. Because she had finally said it. What she really thought of me. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. My father would probably be ashamed. But you know what he'd be more ashamed of? The fact that I let you walk all over me for 23 years. I walked over to the mantel, where they had displayed family photos. All of them featured Linda, Sarah, Jessica, and my father. None of them included me. He'd be ashamed, I continued, that I let you erase me from my own family. That I let you take over his house and pretend that I never existed. I picked up one of the photos. It was from Christmas, 3 years ago. The last Christmas, before my father got sick. In the picture, Linda had her arms around Sarah and Jessica. My father was in the background, smiling, but he looked tired. Where am I in this picture? I asked. No one answered. I was there, I said. I was standing right next to my father. But somehow, I got cropped out. I set the photo down. Face down. Just like I've been cropped out of everything else. Linda was crying now. Real tears. Not the performance tears from the funeral. We can work something out, she said. We can pay you rent. We can. No. The word came out, stronger than I expected. You can't. I pulled out another set of papers. From my back pocket. Bank records, I said. Showing that, in the 2 years, you've lived here rent-free, you've spent over $30,000 on vacation trips. Designer clothes. New cars for the girls. Sarah looked sick. You had money, I continued. You just chose to spend it on everything except what you owed me. We didn't know. Jessica started. You didn't know what? That actions have consequences? That living in someone else's house for free might eventually catch up with you. I looked around the room at the life they had built on my father's money. In my house, I gave you 2 years. 2 years to do the right thing, to figure out a plan, to show me even the smallest amount of respect. And instead, you treated me like I was the problem. Linda wiped her eyes. What do you want us to do? We have nowhere to go. That, I said, is not my problem. I walked to the front door. My front door. And opened it. You have until midnight, I said, to remove your personal belongings. Everything else stays with the house. Everything else? Sarah's voice was tiny. The furniture, the dishes, the decorations. It all came with my father's money. It stays with my father's house. I looked at my watch. It's currently 9:15 p.m. That gives you 2 hours and 45 minutes. And then, I smiled one more time. I'll be back at 12:01 with a locksmith. I left them there, crying, screaming, scrambling. I drove to a 24-hour diner about 10 minutes away, ordered coffee, and waited. At 10:30, my phone started buzzing. Text after text after text. The first one was from Sarah. Please don't do this. We're family. Family. Now, we're family. The second was from Jessica. I'm sorry for everything. Can we please talk about this? I have nowhere to go tonight. Nowhere to go. Funny how that was never a concern when I was sleeping on an air mattress on the floor of my own house. But the best one, the absolute best one, was from Linda. You're making a huge mistake. I have lawyers too. I'll fight this. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. Lawyers. She was going to fight this. With what money? The money she should have been paying me in rent? I screenshot every single message, forwarded them to my lawyer. He responded 20 minutes later. These texts actually help our case. They show acknowledgement that they knew they were supposed to leave. Also, the thread about lawyers is hilarious. Save everything. At 11:45, I drove back to the house. My house. There were 3 cars in the driveway. Linda's SUV, Sarah's sedan, and a pickup truck I didn't recognize. I parked across the street and watched. Through the front windows, I could see people moving around, carrying boxes, looking frantic. At exactly midnight, I walked up to the front door, knocked. Sarah answered. Her eyes were red and swollen. We need more time, she said. We couldn't get everything. Time's up, I said. Keys, please. You're really going to do this? You're really going to make us homeless on Thanksgiving night? You're not homeless, I said. You just can't live here anymore. I held out my hand. Keys. She dropped them into my palm. House keys. Garage door opener. Mailbox key. All of it. Where's your mother? In the kitchen, packing. I walked past Sarah, into my own house. For the first time in 2 years, without permission, Linda was shoving dishes into cardboard boxes. The good china. The silverware. My mother's serving platters. Excuse me, I said. She looked up. Her face was a mess. Mascara everywhere. Hair falling out of her perfect Thanksgiving updo. Those dishes, I said, pointing to the china. Those belonged to my mother. Your father gave them to me, she said. My father gave you permission to use them, not to take them. I walked over, started removing the plates from her boxes. Everything in this kitchen stays. Everything in this house stays. Personal items only. Personal items? Her voice was shrill now. What counts as personal items? Clothes, photos, toiletries, things that are specifically and obviously yours. I looked around the kitchen. This blender? My father bought it. These pots and pans? Came with the house when he married my mother. The microwave? The coffee maker? All of it stays. That's insane, Sarah said from the doorway. We've been using these things for 15 years. Using them, not owning them. I walked into the living room. Jessica was wrapping up picture frames. Those can go, I said, looking at the family photos. But the frames stay here. She looked confused. The frames were purchased with household money. The photos are yours. For the next 30 minutes, I supervised their packing, making sure they only took what was actually theirs. It wasn't much. Clothes, a few personal photos, some books, Sarah's laptop, Jessica's makeup collection, Linda's jewelry, though I made her prove that each piece was something my father specifically gave her versus something she bought with household money. At 12:45 a.m., they were done. 3 lives, 15 years in this house. And everything they were actually entitled to fit into 6 cardboard boxes and 3 suitcases. This is it? I asked. Linda nodded. She looked defeated. Whose truck? I pointed outside. Sarah's boyfriend, Linda said. He's helping us move. Move where? Jessica's friend has a couch, Sarah said quietly. For tonight. 1 couch. For 3 people. I almost felt bad. But then I remembered the air mattress. The floor of my own bedroom. The $50 a week they charged me when I was 16. Well, I said. Good luck. They started carrying boxes to the truck. I watched from the front window. 3 trips. That's all it took to remove them from my life. At 1:15 a.m., Linda came back to the door. Alone. I need to say something, she said. I waited. I know we didn't treat you fairly. But your father loved us. All of us. He wouldn't have wanted this. I looked at her. Really looked at her. For maybe the first time in 23 years. You're probably right, I said. My father would have wanted me to keep taking care of you. To keep sacrificing myself for your comfort. To keep being invisible so you could play house with his memory. I stepped closer. But my father is dead. And I'm tired of living for dead people. She nodded. Like she finally understood. The house, it's really beautiful, she said. You'll be happy here. I know, I said. I already am. At 1:30 a.m., the truck pulled away. I locked the front door of my house and walked upstairs to the master bedroom. My father's bedroom, which had become Linda's bedroom, which was now mine. I sat on the edge of the bed. My bed. And for the first time in 23 years, I felt at peace. My phone buzzed. One last text. From Linda. I hope you know what you've done tonight can never be undone. We'll never forgive you for this. I typed back, good. I don't want your forgiveness. I want your absence. And then I blocked all 3 numbers. It's been 3 days now. 3 days of sleeping in my own bed, in my own house, without asking permission. I've changed all the locks, updated the security system, had the utilities transferred back to my name only. And you know what? The house feels different, lighter, like it can breathe again. I found something interesting while I was going through my father's old paperwork. A letter he wrote, but never sent, dated 6 months before he died. It was addressed to me. In it, he apologized for everything, for choosing Linda's feelings over mine, for letting me become a stranger in my own home, for being too weak to stand up for me when I needed him most. And then, at the very end, he wrote this: "The house is yours, sweetheart. Not because I'm dying, but because it should have been yours all along. I hope, someday, you'll fill it with better memories than the ones I helped create." Better memories. I'm working on that. Yesterday, I rearranged the living room, put my mother's photos back on the mantle, moved the furniture back to where it was when I was a kid. It's starting to feel like home again. I know some people might think what I did was cruel, evicting them on Thanksgiving, not giving them more time to figure things out. But here's the thing. I gave them 2 years. 2 years to do the right thing. 2 years to treat me with basic human decency. 2 years to acknowledge that I had rights too. They chose to use that time to take advantage of me, to dismiss me, to treat my kindness as weakness. So no, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel bad. I feel free. For the first time in my adult life, I'm living in a space where I'm not walking on eggshells, where I'm not waiting for someone to tell me I don't belong. My stepfamily taught me a valuable lesson. They taught me that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the people who will hurt you the most. And that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to stop protecting them. I'm done being the good daughter, the understanding stepdaughter, the patient sister. From now on, I'm just me, in my own house, living my own life, making my own rules. And if that makes me the villain in their story, so be it. I'd rather be the villain in their story than the victim in my own. If you liked this story, check out this other one on the screen. It's about a woman who discovered her husband's affair and got the most perfect revenge. You're going to love it. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes the best thing you can do for toxic people is to remove yourself from their lives. See you there.